Hi, Wacko, Christina, and Matt. We are going to talk about character development for this month's storytelling tip. So, I'm going to talk to you about a formula, which is because X, then Y and Z. Or you could say because E for event, then I is the interpretation and the decision. Then you have O, the outcome or behavior. I haven't figured out exactly how to word this yet because I've seen it done it a couple different ways. But the bottom line is because of an event happened, an interpretation was made, and then that influenced the outcome. And this occurs universally in stories, outside of stories, in real life. And if you use it in the context of a ghost, which if you follow John Truby, the ghost, I'm going to briefly explain the ghost, and then I'm going to talk about how this formula you can use to create that ghost. So a ghost is essentially the backstory. It's whatever happened before the story starts that sets up the events to follow. So the term the ghost actually comes from the story of Hamlet, because there is a literal, his father, who is dead at the beginning of the story, shows up as a ghost and tells him that, hey, my brother did it, your uncle Claudius, and so you should go exact revenge for me. And so in the story of Hamlet, the literal ghost is the dead king. But in our lives and in the lives of other characters, it could be stuff that happened in their childhood, between their stuff, around their parents or their siblings, or even a past life. So all of that contributes to this concept of ghost. So it's all the stuff that happened before. If you want to take a historic view, that would be how their great grandparents met, how their parents met, and every little thing that led up to them being born and led up to wherever you decide to start the story. So I'm going to talk about some examples from Avatar: The Last Airbender, because that's a favorite show of mine. And then I'll talk briefly about how it applies to my characters as well, so you can see some examples. And then I'll talk about how it also applies in life, right? In my life. So in Avatar, the main character, Aang, the event that happened is that he finds out he is the Avatar, and being the Avatar is a giant responsibility. He finds this out as a little young child. So because of this event, he interprets it as, this is too big of a responsibility for me at this age to handle, and so the outcome is that he runs away and gets frozen in a block of ice. But the outcome is also in his behavior. He acts goofy all the time at the start as a defense mechanism, in a sense, because he doesn't want to be taken seriously. He's not that kind of guy, right? He wants, because our personalities, in a sense, yes, they're affected by our temperament, but they're also to some degree a decision we made when we were about 5. But some event happened and we decided, hey, this is the personality that will keep me safe. And it seems like for Aang, his decision was that to be silly and to be goofy and to would create this safety around him where people found him fun, easygoing, and wouldn't put too much pressure or responsibility on him. That was sort of his personality shield, you could say. I've also heard it be called a strong suit. So he's strong at that because that's his defense against, having to actually do really hard work, right? So for Sokka, the event that happened is that all of the men in his village leave to go to war. And so then his interpretation of that is, now I have to be the man in my community because he's the only sort of preteen teenager and isn't a kid under 5. Um, and so he suddenly has to grow up. So, but he knows that he's not grown up yet, right? He has to act adult, but he's not actually an adult. And so he has this constant need to show off and impress people in order to feed that insecurity of, hey, look, I'm the man now. I'm a man. Have you noticed that I'm a man now? So that, again, because of how he interpreted the event, the outcome is that he acts kind of cocky, which is completely different from, say, Aang's interpretation of a similar type of event. So for Toph, she discovered that she could see despite being blind, so she could see through her earthbending. And so, of course, her interpretation is, I'm not disabled at all, right? And so she goes off to have the outcome is she goes off to have this secret identity. And with Katara, so for her, was seeing the suffering of the war, so that as an event leads her to interpret that fighting is necessary and I need to be a warrior, right? For some people, seeing the war, they wouldn't have that interpretation or that decision. Like, they would rather be a healer, right? Or they would rather, hide until the fight is over, like Aang, right? But no, for her, Katara, seeing the war makes her want to be a warrior in order to solve it, right? So she takes on stewardship. She wants to find a mentor and a teacher, someone who will teach her how to fight. And so this same event, this war, also Zuko sees the effect of the war, sees the people suffer, and for him the interpretation is that everything he ever knew is wrong. Growing up as the son of the Fire Lord, and before acting all high and mighty, and he realizes that, hey, these people that are my subjects are just as human and just as in need of protection and worthy of respect that I am. And so the outcome is that he completely changes his behavior from before and joins the opposing team. He joins Team Avatar to oppose the tyranny that his father has spread. But he doesn't have to be like that, right? He could have continued being a flat character which believes, like, I am the prince, I deserve the best, screw the rest of you. But, that wasn't his interpretation of the event. So I'm going to talk briefly about, in Man's case, I'm going to choose an event that happened, again, this is his ghost, right? This happened before he met Lucky, which is that his parents were both killed. And when that happened, he made a decision where he interpreted the events to mean that he was unlucky. And that he also wouldn't be able to give that full family experience to his then girlfriend at the time. Her name was Anandpreet. And so the outcome was that he broke up with her. He didn't want to carry this long-term relationship because his whole family decided to relocate. But anyway, so these are all past events, which I'll call the ghost, which then influence everything afterward. And if you take time to reflect and even think about your own life, you could be able to bring up a lot of ghosts for yourself. Because everyone who is human, who is a person, we have these triggers. Like, we have this certain behavior, and the reason why we have this behavior is because of some interpretation we made about some event in the past. That's it. So I get triggered whenever somebody mentions that they're lonely, and that's because I used to feel that way for a very long time myself. And that might have been an interpretation I made when I was like a year old. And I distinctly remember building, like, I was at a preschool, daycare, I was building this castle out of these fake cardboard blocks. And I wanted to build this giant castle, right? I love creating things. But before I could build this giant castle, another kid comes over and knocks it right down. And even though I try again, she comes back and knocks it right down. And I decided then and there that, you know, it's not safe to make anything with other people around. And it was like my commitment in that brief moment in time that it's safer and it's better to be by myself, to be a lone wolf, because other people were crazy. And so that persisted throughout my childhood because I never examined it. And until you realize that, hey, it works for some contexts, but it doesn't work for all contexts. But because it's something that a decision you make as a child, it becomes stuck in your subconscious. And so it's something that you have to continuously work through. And that's an example from my life, but you can probably find lots and lots of examples of stuff like that. People who continuously have breakup after breakup after breakup because of some event that happened in the past that they interpreted as, you know, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy. So every time they come close to having a really fulfilling relationship, they pull back and they sabotage it themselves because, subconsciously they made this choice and they don't feel safe taking it any further, so they always pull back just before, you know, they get what they really, really want. But they haven't dealt with that trigger yet that goes from their childhood. So I hope that was useful to you to some degree in whatever means you choose to use it in, whether it's self-examination or whether it's in your own storytelling and story creation. And I haven't decided what the topic for October is yet, but I suppose we'll find out what video I decide to make next month. And thank you again for your patronage, and I love you a lot, and we'll be in touch.